Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhav Jaya Radha Madhav Jaya Radha Madhav Jaya Radha Madhav Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Srila Prabhupada ki jai Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya And recite the Sanskrit and English together. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayesha patreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamashoke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him, and I beg for service, life. Today thank you everyone for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class this morning. Very happy you're here and happy to be here. We're going to be studying Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 5. We're starting chapter 16 today. And we're going to read through verses 1 through 10. And we'll focus in on verse 3. Everyone, please take turns reciting the translations.
King Parikshit said to Shukadev Goswami, "O Brahmana, you have already informed me that the radius of Bhumandala extends as far as the sun spreads its light and heat, and as far as the moon and all the stars can be seen."
My dear Lord, the rolling wheels of Maharaj Priyavrata's chariot created 7 ditches in which the 7 oceans came into existence. Because of these 7 oceans, Bhumandala is divided into 7 islands. You have given a very general description of their measurement, names, and characteristics. Now I wish to know of them in detail. Kindly fulfill my desire.
When the mind is fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and its external feature made of the material modes in nature, the gross universal form, it is brought to the platform of pure goodness. In that transcendental position, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, who in his subtler form is self-effulgent and beyond the modes of nature. O my Lord, please describe vividly how that form, which covers the entire universe, is perceived.
The great Rishi Shukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, there is no limit to the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's material energy. This material world is a transformation of the material qualities Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. Yet no one could possibly explain it perfectly, even in a lifetime as long as that as Brahma. No one in the material world is perfect, and an imperfect person could not describe this material universe accurately, even after continued speculation. O king, I shall nevertheless try to explain to you the principal regions, such as Bhuloka, with their names, forms, measurements, and various symptoms."
The planetary system known as Bhumandala resembles a lotus flower, and its 7 islands resemble the whorl of that flower. The length and breadth of the island known as Jambudvip, which is situated in the middle of the whorl, are 1 million yojanas, 8 million miles. Jambudvip is round, like the leaf of a lotus flower.
Who was on it?
In Jambu Dweep, there are 9 divisions of land, each with a length of 9,000 yojanas, 72,000 miles. There are 8 mountains that mark the boundaries of these divisions and separate them nicely.
Amidst these divisions are Varsas. Is the Varsa named Uvarta, which is situated in the middle of the world. Ilavrita, thank you, which is situated in the middle of the world of the lotus. Within the Ilavrita Varsha is Sumera Mountain, which is made of gold. Sumera Mountain is like the pericarp of the lotus-like Bhumandala planetary system. The mountain's height is the same as the width of Jambuvik, or in other words, 100,000 yojanas, 800,000 miles. Of that, 16,000 yojanas, 128,000 miles, are within the earth, and therefore the mountain's height above the earth is 84,000 yojanas, 672,000 miles. The mountain's width is 32,000 yojanas, 256,000 miles, and it is in its summit and the 16,000 yojanas at its base.
So happy I didn't have to give class on that verse.
Just north of Ilavrita Varsha and going further northward, one after another, are 3 mountains named Nila, Shveta, and Shringavan. These mark the borders of the 3 Varshas named Ramyaka, Hiranmaya, and Kuru, and separate them from one another. The width of these mountains is 2,000 yojanas, 16,000 miles. Lengthwise, they extend east and west to the beaches of the ocean of salt water. Going from south to north, the length of each mountain is 1/10 that of the previous mountain, but the height of them is all the same.
Text 9. Similarly, south of Ilavrtavarsha and extending from east to west are three great mountains named from north to south Nishada, Hemakuta, and Himalaya. Each of them is 10,000 yojanas, about 80,000 miles high. They mark the boundaries of the three varshas named Harivarsha, Kimpurusha Varsha, and Bharatavarsha.
In the same way, west and east of Levarta Vasa are two great mountains named Malyavan and Gandhamadana, respectively. These two mountains, which are 2,000 yojanas, 16,000 miles high, extend as far as Nila Mountain in the north and Nishana in the south. They indicate the borders of Levarta Varsa and also the Varsas known as Katumala and Bharavsva.
Beautiful. Do we have any like science people in the room right now? People that like get into this kind of thing, nerd out over this kind of thing? A little bit? Yeah. Yeah. Just Adumna said his nephew likes this kind of stuff. Yeah, there's a whole group of people. There's a base in Gainesville, Florida, of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. It's all about like the sciences of that's presented in these Vedic literatures, and they just go in on all sorts of details and how to understand it from the modern scientific perspective. They have like PhDs and they're writing amazing books and doing series. It's really beautiful. They actually make it interesting to me, which is hard to do because I've never been that into the technical stuff. But they get really into it. So if you want to get really into the technical aspects of this whole type of description and all of these things, then Bhaktivedanta Institute is your place to find some sangha. We'll go into the third verse. Can someone help me with this meter? Is this okay? It's pros. Okay, we'll just go ahead and recite the word for word together then. Verse 5:16:3. Guys ready? Okay. Bhagavata of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gunamaye into the external features consisting of the three modes of material nature. Stularupe, the gross form. Aveshitam, entered. Manaha, the mind. He, indeed. Agune, transcendental. Api, although. Shukshmatme, in his smaller forms as the Paramatma within the heart. Atmadyostit, who is full of Brahman effulgence. Pare, the supreme Brahmani, spiritual entity. Bhagavati, the supreme personality of Godhead. Vasudevakya, known as Bhagavan Vasudev. Shamam, suitable. Aveshtitum, to absorb. Tat, that. Uha, indeed. Etat, this. Guru, O my dear spiritual master. Arhasi, and please describe factually. Iti, thus. Translation. When the mind is fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his external feature, made of the material modes of nature, the gross universal form, it is brought to the platform of pure goodness. In that transcendental position, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudev, who, in his subtler form, is self-effulgent and beyond the modes of nature. O my Lord, please describe vividly how that form, which covers the entire universe, is perceived. We can take turns reading the purport because the paragraphs are a little bit long. So, somebody want to?
Maharaj Parikshit had already been advised by his spiritual master Sukadeva Goswami to think of the universal form of the Lord, and therefore, following the advice of his spiritual master, he continuously thought of that form. The universal form is certainly material, but because everything is an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ultimately nothing is material. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj's mind was saturated with spiritual consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami has stated,
You can skip the Sanskrit.
everything, even that which is material, is connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, everything should be engaged in the service of the Lord. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura translates this verse as follows. One should not give up anything connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking it material or enjoyable for the material senses. Even the senses, when purified, are spiritual. When Maharaj Parikshit was thinking of the universal form of the Lord, his mind was certainly situated on the transcendental platform. Therefore, although he might not have had any reason to be concerned with detailed information of the universe, he was thinking of it in relationship with the Supreme Lord. And therefore, such geographical knowledge was not material, but transcendental. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.20, Narada Muni has said, Adam e Vishvam Bhagavan Ivicharya. The entire universe is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although it appears different from him. Therefore, although Parikshit Maharaj had no need for geographical knowledge of this universe, that knowledge was also spiritual and transcendental, because he was thinking of the entire universe as an expansion of the energy of the Lord.
In our preaching work also, we deal with so much property and money, and so many books bought and sold. But because these dealings all pertain to the Krishna consciousness movement, they should never be considered material. That one is absorbed in thoughts of such management does not mean that he is outside of Krishna consciousness. If one rigidly observes the regular principle of chanting 16 rounds of the Maha Mantra every day, his dealings with the material world for the sake of spreading Krishna consciousness movement, the Krishna consciousness movement, are not different from the spiritual cultivation of Krishna consciousness.
Haribo. Very sweet, hope-giving purport here. Okay. So the topic for today's class, there were two topics that I could choose from. Prabhupada Priya, she has like each thing like sectioned out, and so she mercifully gives us, a focused topic. And so I could either talk about transcendental geography or how to deal with the material world. So I think I'll go with the second one. Although the transcendental geography is really impressive, and hearing the description, I mean, yeah, this is what these verses are telling us. And Maharaj Parikshit, earlier in the purport, Prabhupada explains and reminds us that earlier in Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit was advised to meditate on the universal form of the Lord, because it purifies the intelligence. It brings our intelligence, our mind to the platform of pure goodness, because it reminds us that everything is in connection with Krishna. And so Srila Prabhupada goes into that because Shukadev, or because Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami, because they were seeing this entire cosmic manifestation in connection with Krishna, it wasn't a material discussion. If if we go out and we have a conversation about the weather with somebody who's not God conscious, it's not the same. But if we speak about these things in relation to Krishna, or how the weather is going to affect our Sankirtan for the day, or things like that, then it becomes a transcendental conversation. It becomes a spiritual conversation. This goes for all sorts of things that some might consider mundane, maybe our career, maybe our maybe even some interest that we have. I'm reminded of Srila Prabhupada one time having a very long discussion with this person who came to see him about cars, race cars, I think, something like that. He was just talking about cars for a while and didn't preach to him or anything, and they just had a nice conversation. The man he was talking to felt, happy and glad to have talked to Srila Prabhupada, and afterwards his disciples, Prabhupada's disciples, were like, Prabhupada, you didn't preach to him. Or maybe they said something like that. Anyways, the message was that he didn't have to speak directly about Krishna to be speaking about Krishna. As a pure devotee, he sees everything in relation to Krishna and in how it can be used to bring the souls closer to him, and he's connected to Krishna. So therefore, it was a very Krishna conscious conversation. But we hear a little bit in the purport as well about the inaccuracy of material sciences. Because this material world is so grand, there's so much on the macro cosmic level to the microcosmic level. There's infinite possibilities and infinite ways of perceiving or interpreting things. And material science, it uses the bottom to top approach. We're trying to go from I don't know anything, so let me figure it out myself, and eventually I'll work my way up and I'll figure out the entire universe. But the Vedas give us the top-down approach. We understand, okay, this is the universe, and this is the material energy, and this is how we relate to the material energy, and it's coming from a higher source. So actually we see constantly, and this is but the Bhaktivedanta Institute in Gainesville is so cool, because they're constantly pointing out that material science, they come to so many conclusions and then they change their mind. Like for years they'll say like, oh, this is what it is. I remember when I was in elementary school, and we memorized the planets, and then all of a sudden, I can't remember what grade I was in, but I remember like hearing like, oh, Pluto's not a planet anymore. Like we're not calling Pluto a planet anymore. It's just like, what? Why? Like this is so random, you know. And material science is doing that all the time. And just like, okay, we found new information, so we're no longer calling it this, and then oh, we found more information that backs up our original thesis, so we're gonna go back to calling it that. And the Vedas are just they're eternal, and it's consistent. And ultimately, material science ends up confirming what the Vedas have given us. This is what the Bhaktivedanta Institute is showing. Yeah, always finding ways that material science has confirmed the Vedas, which I think is really cool. Yeah, and the universal form of the Lord, meditating on the material energy of the Lord, the material creation of the Lord, as non-different. Like this isn't everything that we see is an expansion of Krishna's energy. When we understand that, we can understand that it's not material at all. Everything is spiritual, because it's all coming from the Supreme Spirit, Krishna. And so Krishna gives us, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, he gives us very beautiful descriptions of the universe. We have beautiful descriptions of the universal form and ways to meditate upon Krishna. When we are out in the world, when we do see a beautiful sunset, or we do see a flower, or we do see a shark in the water, we can think, oh, this is the representation of Krishna. This is Krishna's energy. I was also thinking, like, Srimad Bhagavatam has something for everything, for everyone. Whatever your inclination is, Srimad Bhagavatam is there. Like, if you like fights, if you like battles, if you like science, if you like romance, whatever niche you're into, Srimad Bhagavatam has it. But ultimately, Bhakti is an affair of the heart. And so all of this information about the universal form, we need to somehow or other figure out a way to connect it to the heart. Which is easy to do when we have some appreciation for the greatness of Krishna, and also some experience of his mercy in our lives. Then we can we can bring it to the heart. We can read these grand descriptions of all these technical details, and we can think, wow, my Krishna is so amazing. Look at what he's given us. Look at what he's done, so that, we have somewhere to try to, enjoy, somewhere to try to exist, even though we're trying to be separate from him. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada makes a really beautiful statement. Everything is an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ultimately, nothing is material. So what makes something material versus spiritual? And can you guys share some examples? I want to hear from.
I can go. So I think the thing that changes something from material or spiritual is your perception of it. So if I'm just looking at, you said something really good about like just talking about the weather and like how it's not really like spiritual thing. But then if I'm like talking to my parents because they like talking about the weather, but I'm like thinking about it in terms of like meeting my parents where they're at so that they know that I love them by talking about the weather and that I'm like sharing Krishna consciousness with them. So then it's like kind of the intention or the perception through which you're just viewing something.
Yeah. Beautiful. Anyone else want to share examples?
On a more technical point, it's just different energies of the Lord. Like there's the internal energy that's like considered spiritual, and then the external energy we consider material. But it both comes from him, and he's totally spiritual. So.
Exactly, yeah. Manjri Gopika?
Hare Krishna. I was just thinking that what makes something material versus spiritual is your intention and how you utilize it. I think it was Srila Prabhupada who gave the example using a knife. Is a knife good or is a knife bad? Well, if a thief comes up to you and puts a knife against your chest and says, "Give me your wallet," the knife is bad. But if a surgeon has a knife and is, cutting open the chest to restart your heart, the knife is good. So in the same way, when we utilize Krishna's energies for service to him, it's spiritual. And when we try to use those energies to enjoy, then it's material.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I was thinking also just some things are, regardless of your consciousness, they are spiritual. Like if someone walks in here and, they don't know who Kalachandji is, they don't know who Radha Kalachandji are, but that doesn't make them material. They're still Krishna and Radha Krishna. Same thing with Bhagavad Gita. So, yeah, it's kind of cool that there's a few, Krishna himself, he never becomes material, but, things related to Krishna, if we perceive them in that way, that's kind of how we interact with it, while Krishna still maintains his spiritual position at all times.
Yeah, I wonder if that's true for everything. Like, go ahead, Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. As I was going to say is that actually everything is spiritual, but we make it material. So, yeah, it's all Krishna's energy and Krishna's spiritual. But, yeah, due to our material consciousness, when we try to enjoy things separately from Krishna, then we make it material.
Yeah, we try to. That's what
so
I
then,
was
as soon as
looking for.
that verse says that when we use things for in Krishna's service, then it regains its spiritual nature. In other words, it's originally spiritual, but we just kind of like contaminate it.
Exactly.
It
Everything
regains
is
its inherent spiritual.
everything
qualities.
is inherently spiritual. It's our desire to enjoy separately from Krishna that makes anything material.
It's like I'll give a funny example. Like okay, I heard this in a class in Mayapur. I can't remember who was giving the class. Anyways, there was a person, and he went to the bathroom and he did a number 2, and then he kind of looked at what was there and he made a bad face. So then that thing that was there in the toilet spoke back to him and said, "Don't give me that bad face. I was a rasagula, and this is what you did to me." So it's kind of like that. It's like what we have is pure and spiritual, but it's due to our association that it comes out looking like that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. That's a good analogy. Yeah. Yeah, so if we're using things in an attempt to enjoy or to try to make ourselves into the enjoyer, then it becomes that. It becomes number 2. It becomes, not anything good, disconnected from Krishna. It becomes a source of bondage. But if we use the very same thing and we offer it completely to Krishna, with gratitude and love and in a mood of service, then everything that we come in contact with can be spiritualized. Srila Prabhupada is like the perfect example of this. I know in the journey home, Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he writes about like when he first started seeing the devotees and they would have these like fancy microphone equipment and these recorders and these cameras. He was a little like, that's interesting. I thought monks are supposed to be renounced. They're not really supposed to use this kind of thing. But he quickly could understand that no, these things are being used for the highest good. They're being used fully in Krishna's service. And so it's a very spiritual activity. We can have like a lot of discussion because I don't have much to say.
Okay. Once upon a time. No, it just reminded me of like, there was one time I asked one of my mentors, because I always have like a pile of books on my desk, and then often I'll put my laptop on the pile of books to like put it to my height so it's better for my neck. And I asked one of my mentors, like, is this okay? Because these are like spiritual books and they're like Krishna, and like we're not supposed to put anything on them or put them on the floor. And he's like, you're using your laptop in Krishna's service, so your laptop is spiritual too. So it's like, don't worry about it, type of thing. So that's just a thought that I had.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you. Did anyone look online, Srimad Bhagavatam WhatsApp group? Narottam actually, he posted a really good question. And anyway, it led me to, he quoted chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, and specifically text 27. And it's really right on what you're discussing. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the 3 modes of material nature. In the next verse, one who's in knowledge of the absolute truth, the mighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work and devotion and work for fruitive results. So it's just, it's all attitude.
Yeah, exactly.
One is enjoying spirit, one is let's let Krishna enjoy.
Right, and we'll never be satisfied if we're trying to enjoy things for ourselves, like the hand that we eat with our hand, and we use our hand to feed our mouth, which food goes to the stomach, nourishes the body, and everything's happy. But the hand gets envious and says, no, I want to enjoy for myself, and tries to mush up some rasagula or something and starve the stomach, then the hand eventually is gonna be very weak. So I also think this is a really cool. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada quotes his Guru Maharaj's translation of a verse. It was said, one should not give up anything connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking it material or enjoyable for the material senses. That's such an interesting statement. One should not give up anything connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking it material or enjoyable for the material senses. This is a conversation about true versus false renunciation. False renunciation is, we often, see yogis who want to just go to the Himalayas and meditate, or and this can be beneficial for some people if that's their path. But Srila Prabhupada does make a statement that many times people try to go and meditate and empty the mind or focus on a hole in the wall or something, and kind of negate or just, I'm not going to engage with my material senses and anything. Meanwhile, the mind is still engaged in all sorts of nonsense activities, or falling asleep, or thinking of sex and money. But what we're hearing here from this most renounced, amazing personality, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that true renunciation is to use everything in service of the Lord that can possibly be used in His service. If I'm saying, oh, this microphone is, a material thing, then I'm limiting the amount of service that I can do, and I'm limiting the amount of spiritual energy that is manifest. The more that we use in Krishna's service, the more spiritualized the world around us becomes. So this is true renunciation. True renunciation is not to avoid contact with the material world. True renunciation is to avoid thinking that the material world is for my enjoyment, and to offer everything up for Krishna's enjoyment, to use everything in Krishna's service. Yeah, please. That was kind of my last main point. So we can just open up for a conversation now.
I have a question. Whoa. Okay, I have a question. So this is something that's been on my mind, like basically since I joined the movement. Because like years ago, I used to be a DJ, and that was my thing, and that was like my life, and I was doing all kinds of shows and stuff. And I ended up letting it go for a more like sadvik life, because that kind of environment is not sadvik at all.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm always thinking like, should I bring it back and somehow Krishnaize it? Would it really bring people closer to Krishna? Or, because if you're playing music that is more like in the mode of passion, I don't know, you can put the Maha Mantra on there, but is it, I don't know. What do you all think about this? Like, I don't know.
I'll share that. Have you ever heard of Shelter or 108? Or
They're not doing that anymore.
But they were. And when they were, it was big. The Philadelphia temple, like, there's still devotees in the Philadelphia temple. They're very dedicated to the service there, that joined because of them. Or I have a mentor who joined because of that. There's so many devotees, like, they made waves and they made devotees. There were a lot of people for people who don't know, these are Shelter and these, they were bands, like rock and roll. This is back in the 90s, when like heavy metal, like screaming rock and roll was really, really big. And there was this group of people actually that weren't devotees, but they called themselves straight edge. They were really into the rock and roll lifestyle. They were really into the culture and all of these things, but they didn't drink, they didn't smoke, they didn't like to have illicit sex. A lot of them were vegetarian also. They were straight edge. That's what their thing was. And so I guess Raghunath Chapo, I think is his last name. Capo. Yeah, he's, Wisdom of the Sages. He was like the lead singer. He started this band called Shelter, and so many other bands popped up, and they just, people were so attracted to this. Philadelphia was kind of a big place where that popped off. And that temple, like, it was like night and day. I've heard stories. It was like night and day. All of a sudden, the temple went from being like nobody really there to just being full of young people. One of the guys there, he recently got initiated, actually, after, many years since this era happened. He was in and out of the Krishna consciousness movement. He used to record songs down in the basement of the temple there. And then now he's an initiated devotee, very, very solid devotee. And he just tells stories about how like overnight basically the temple was just completely full of people. And this is actually what we're trying to look for nowadays. Like we see people like Goravani. He's making this amazing music that like you can dance to and you can groove to, and it's really attractive. And we just need to find what's gonna do that, what's gonna continue to spark that in people. So maybe that's part of it. Making remixes out of kirtans and bhajans and stuff, and making it something modern people want to dance to. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? Manji Gopika?
I can't give you advice on what you should do. Probably only your mentor could. But it just made me think of a quote. My favorite Kirtaniya is His Holiness Kadambakanana Swami Maharaj. And I was recently listening to a kirtan where he gave a talk at the beginning about the holy name and how there's no wrong or right way to sing it or chant it. And then he said, I start in raga and somehow it always turns into rock. He said, I don't know what's wrong with me.
That's beautiful.
I'll just speak from my own experience that when I was a new devotee and I joined the London temple. So, of course, in the temple we had traditional kirtans. And then and I was still kind of like in that stage of, all right, is this what I'm going to do, forever? Or is this something that I'm going to explore for a while? I hadn't totally made a commitment to Krishna consciousness. I had just been around I joined in April. And then then the first Rath Yatra happened in June. So I just joined at the end of April. And so it's just a few months later. And then they had for Rath Yatra, they ended up in a park, and then they had this stage that they put up, and then the devotees got up there with they had this band, and it was like, he's playing guitar, and they had a saxophone, and they had drums, and it was like, and then everybody was just going wild. Like the dancing was just like wild. It wasn't like how we would dance in the temple room. It was just like anything goes. And I was so ecstatic. And then it was during that kirtan, it was like in the middle of dancing in that kirtan that I was like, no, this is it. This is like I'm doing, like I've never felt like this level of like happiness doing anything else in my life. So why would I leave it? So it was kind of like, but it's sort of like, it took that to connect with something that was already like in my experience, like the thing that I would enjoy the most was like, like going to like where there's a band and with friends and dancing. And I was like, oh my God, doing this, like the most enjoyable thing in the material world for Krishna is just like next level, like this is like really the high, this is like where it's at. Why would I do anything else? So that was my young new devotee mindset. And so it really helped me to become a devotee for sure.
Yeah, and how that looks for us, and how much we can handle, like integrating back into a, like you said, like this is what you used to do, so sometimes to integrate back into what we used to do can be a little dangerous. So those are details that need to be, worked out with your mentor and introspected on. But ultimately, yeah, like if it's something that someone's inclined to do, is share Krishna consciousness in a way that's appealing to the masses, by all means, we need that. We need more of that. Do you have any more thoughts on that?
So it sounds like everybody's supportive that I do a set at the house, and whatever happens, happens.
So now he wants to lead the party. Krishna Fest in the park. Do you want to explain in the mic?
So in when was it? It was early 90s. We had Krishna Fest, which was started by Gunagrahi Maharaj and Mahatma Prabhu.
Whoa.
And we were rocking on the stage. And back then, the stage was in that corner of the park. And all the kids, they were just, man, they were totally into it. It was just so cool. And it was Krishna conscious rock and roll.
That's awesome.
And it was, I mean, even my little 4-year-old, 3-year-old Veerabhadram, he's just dancing away. They've got pictures of him dancing across the stage, and yeah, it's just like it was huge.
Yeah. There's so
so
many.
there's no limit.
Yeah, there's like people in this world are so different. There's so many different types of people. We need different types of preaching and different types of engagement to keep people interested in Krishna consciousness, to get their attention and keep it. Anyone else want to share or have any thoughts or comments or questions about this concept of what can be offered back to Krishna, maybe what can't? That's awesome.
I don't know I don't know if you guys really know what I'm talking about here. Like we would start at 10 p.m., Like we would start at 10 p.m.
They used to do that on Harinam. Uh-huh. Yeah, they would do Deep Elam Harinam all night and then come to Mangalarti in the morning. So yeah. It really comes down to like it's between you and your mentors and like really what's going to be best for your, cuz that's a good question that we need to ask ourselves. Is this actually going to be a way that I can preach? Is this actually going to be something that I am doing because I want people to come closer to Krishna? I want to please Krishna? Or is this something that I want to do because I'm still inclined towards that lifestyle and I somehow or other just want to justify engaging with that energy again? I'm not saying anything either way, but this is the question that we need to ask ourselves, and it comes down to that, I think.
This type of music, typically people are heavily intoxicated.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how it's gonna sound when people are sober. But anyway,
Yeah.
I can try and see.
But I mean, there's things like ecstatic dance and stuff. Like you can find like with the rock and roll people with Shelter, and they found their niche. They found the straight edge kids. There are gonna be people that want to party and rave and they don't want to get intoxicated. Maybe we just need to like find that, and if it's not already there, maybe we need to let people know that that is an option. Yeah, you can party and have a great time without degrading your consciousness.
I have this remix I made. I'll show you later.
Yeah. Party. Anyone else want to share any experiences you've had? We have some beautiful grihastas in the room that maybe can share their experience of integrating material life with spiritual life. Or Prabhu, Raj Bihari Prabhu back here. Thank you so much for coming and visiting us in Dallas. I'm excited to hear you speak very soon. I thought maybe you should be here on the Vyasa Sun this morning, but please.
Hare Krishna. I'm sorry I was late for the class and I was sitting behind. Yeah, integrating material life and spiritual life, I see a bridge in my own life because you asked for an experience. For me, the bridge is gratitude. When I practice gratitude, I see that I'm able to integrate both lives because I think sannyasis, grahasthas, vanaprasthas, brahmacharis, children, women, everyone, old people, everyone has to grapple with this body, mind. So, like simple example, I'm dealing with one issue and it has been taking a lot of my time because it's in India and here and that's night, day, all that timing. So the night before last, I didn't sleep at all, and yesterday I was traveling, and I've been dealing with this issue, and I come here to the temple, and I take darshan of Radha Kalachandji, and it's as if a voice boomed in my heart, as if the Lord is telling me, relax, I'm in charge here, I'm in charge of your life. So conscious practice of gratitude helps us experience Krishna's intervention in Krishna's Krishna's orchestrating the whole thing. So I would see gratitude as the most important practice.
Mm.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Jai. I feel like I don't need to say anything more. Does anyone want to add on to that? Or, I mean, I don't feel like I have to end at 8:30. I can end early. So if there's no other points, or Doug, you want to say something?
I just want to encourage. I've done this where I've like turned things to show. I've like entered talent shows, you know, where I'm like turning things into a spiritual nature, and it is like it can be really awkward and cringe, and people may not, you know, but then it's like you have to keep going. You know, the first time you play guitar is not going to be like the best. Like you have to learn. The first time you play mridanga, the first time you play harmonium, you know, I'm like going through the stage where I'm learning all these instruments right now, and it's like I've been a musician for years, but then it's like restarting in some ways. And so I just wanted to give that little hint of encouragement. You know, if your first DJ set as Krishna conscious doesn't go like the way that you want it to go, like just keep going, because we do need that. In fact, our souls want that. We crave that. So it's like if people, they don't know what they're hungry for yet, but keep going. You know?
I just wanted to bring up. Can you hear me? I just wanted to bring up George Harrison and My Sweet Lord, and there were a lot of people in that era who didn't even know what they were singing, and yet still today we're still singing it. So even if people don't understand what they're singing, they're still putting out the holy names of the Lord, and that's, you know, very purifying for the whole world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
प्रिय प्रिय करो निर्माण पूजितम् श्री चैतन्य कृपा भरौ चैतन्य कृपा भरौ भुवि भुव मारव अंतरक वंदे रूप सनातन रघुजुगौ श्री विचारणै कल्पना सद्धर्म संस्थापक लोकानां हितकारिणं त्रिभुवने मन्नं शरण करो विचारणै कल्पना सद्धर्म संस्थापक लोकानां हितकारिणं त्रिभुवने मन्नं शरण धर्म संस्थापक लोकानां हितकारिणं त्रिभुवने मन्नं शरण चैतन्य कृपा भरौ लोकानां हितकारिणं त्रिभुवने मन्नं